Welcome, parishioners. Today we are going to church and we are talking about Judas and the Black Messiah.
I love it. This is the show where we watch films, talk about those films and the films we're reminded of while watching those films. We love spoilers, it's spoiler heavy, but stick with us.
That's the show. So, Baron, Judas and the Black Messiah.
That's right. We're at Pentridge Cinema again.
Oh, we are. Okay, no, we'll start with that.
Let's start with that. We're at Pentridge Cinema again. That's why there's all this stuff going on around us. We did just watch Judas and the Black Messiah.
I went into this knowing nothing about it. I haven't even thought about it all week. I just knew we had something scheduled. I actually didn't even think about it much. So I went in, I don't know the director, who is...
great name too. Shaka King.
Shaka King?
Shaka King, yeah.
I didn't know many of the actors, and I had no expectations.
Wow.
Did you?
So I'm quite familiar with a couple of the actors because I think they're great from a film which I'll mention later. But beyond that, I didn't know a lot about it at all. And this is sort of award season still. So all I was expecting was that it was going to be good, you know, because it's another one with a bit of buzz.
Okay, let me do a synopsis from IMDb.
Let's just wait for the world's loudest trolley to go by.
Okay, let me start with a synopsis from IMDb because I'm too lazy to make it up myself. And honestly, I will find it a bit hard because there's a lot going on in the film.
Oh, there's a lot going on.
But IMDb says that FBI informant Bill O'Neill, infiltrates the Illinois Black Panther Party and is tasked with keeping tabs on their charismatic leader, Chairman Fred Hampton, aka Messiah. A career thief, O'Neill revels in the danger of manipulating both his comrades and his handler, Special Agent Roy Mitchell. Hampton's political prowess grows just as he's falling in love with fellow revolutionary Deborah Johnson. Meanwhile, a battle wages for O'Neill's soul. It's deep. Will he align with the forces of good or subdue Hampton and the Panthers by any means, as FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover commands? I don't know. If I'm going to do a review on the synopsis, I'm not keen on that synopsis.
I'm not keen on... So normally you get a one-liner on IMDb. This is a long one.
Well, no, there wasn't a one-liner, but I went...
Okay, you went deeper than that.
I went deeper.
Okay. And now you're regretting it.
I'm regretting it.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is based on a true story, of Bill O'Neill infiltrating the Black Panther movement while still sort of feeling for them. But the FBI have something on him, and therefore he is motivated to be a bit of a snitch.
To become a Judas.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And the Judas theme is built upon and slowly, grindingly comes to fruition by the end of the film. But they really sort of milk it, I think, towards the end there. Like it gets a little heavy-handed. However, the film is called Judas and the Black Messiah, so I guess you have to get there in the end.
You know pretty early in the piece, don't you, who's Judas and who's the Messiah and how it's all set up.
Yeah, totally. And so I guess I'll just quickly mention the couple actors that are in there. So you've got Daniel Kaluuya, who plays Fred Hampton, and we would probably know him best from Get Out. He's the main character in Get Out. And then you've got LaKeith Stanfield, who's the Judas, or his Bill, and he's also in Get Out.
Really?
Yeah, he is. He's the guy who sort of was already turned into a white person inside of a black body early on, and you kind of discover what's gone wrong through his sort of reveal. That's a terrible description of what he does, but well,
another terrible thing is that I haven't seen Get Out
yet. Of course, yes. And now I've just ruined it for you. I did mention spoilers.
I kind of know the the vague boundaries of Get Out, but I hadn't seen either of those actors before. I was particularly taken by LaKeith. Is that his name?
Yeah.
That played Bill O'Neill.
Yeah, he's great.
I thought he was wonderful. I thought
Daniel
was pretty good, but didn't like, because he was meant to be the Messiah,
Right.
I felt I wanted even more presence, and I thought it came sometimes,
Yeah.
but not always.
Yeah.
Although, just to have a debate with myself, when at the end I realised that the real character was 21,
Yeah.
that's
kind impressive, isn't it?
It kind of made me think about the real world and what
a freaking
21-year-old
mind he must have had.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That is shocking, actually, because he's actually in his 30s or something, really, and the presence he brings kind of comes with that age, I think. But to imagine a 20-year-old standing up in front of all these people and delivering speeches like that is pretty ridiculous. I can't imagine it, honestly. I could barely string 2 words together at 21.
I can barely string 2 words together still.
Yeah, it's true, as we discover weekly.
Do you generally like true stories?
No, is the short answer.
Yeah, I don't like them either.
I don't generally like them. This one had some powerful scenes in it. It had some really great scenes, but I think it fell flat a little bit where a lot of biopics do. The arc of the story there, what you want from a good story, just is what gets in the way of that is all of the detail.
Yeah.
Like this happened, then that happened, then that happened. And I think sometimes the writer is stuck with, well, I need to tell the story kind of truthfully, but I also need to make it an exciting, Hollywood film at the same time. How do I reconcile these two things? And I think that's where they usually come unstuck, because this one felt like it did a fair job at it, but it still didn't quite gel.
End podcast, because that's my thoughts precisely. There were some killer scenes, killer performances, and killer scenes, but as a whole, it just seemed to be too much meandering, trying to tick boxes of what actually really happened. Yeah. And that made for a messy story. Not a story that's been crafted.
Exactly. And what you wanted to get from it, and I think this is why the Judas theme felt a little belabored by the end, is I think because of the title, I wanted a closer match to the story of Jesus and Judas. Like, I wanted something that felt like it was thematically tied just a little bit more beautifully together. Like the story elements were more closely tied, and they didn't quite get there. And what they did sort of felt like a little heavy-handed in the end, because they were trying to do that while stay true to all the other stuff.
Yeah, that's well said. It's almost like we've got a story of a snitch, and let's just call him Judas. And oh yeah, if he's Judas, then there's the Messiah. Oh, he's black. Let's call him the Black Messiah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And the other thing is is a chairman of the Black Panther movement sort of is he the Messiah that you would call the Messiah of all of the things that were going on or in the 60s around Vietnam and all of that? Like, I just don't know if you would necessarily naturally choose Fred Hampton as that character.
Yeah, that's
although
what I thought.
Clearly, in Chicago, he had a real presence and made a difference. But I don't. It all felt like a little bit of a stretch to me.
I think I would have enjoyed it more had I not been preconditioned by the title to be looking at Fred Hampton as a Messiah figure.
If that had all been through subtext, you'd picked up this theme of Judas on your own.
Yes,
wouldn't that be great?
That's exactly right.
Wouldn't that be great? I totally agree.
Because he evolved, didn't he? The Fred Hampton character. There was a scene that was really good when I think it was when he was out of jail and he was giving his speech, and it became really powerful. He's doing some table thumping, and like that got the crowd and me going. I think that's when Jesse Plemons was in the audience.
We have to talk about Jesse Plemons as well.
Let's talk about Jesse Plemons, previously cited in I'm Thinking of Ending Things.
Yes, that's right.
That we've covered in this show.
Episode something.
Which I think that was the first time I'd seen Jesse Plemons, and I loved him.
Yeah. Had you not seen him in Fargo? Or did we talk about that at the time?
I think you did.
Okay.
I've seen Fargo, but only a few episodes, and I don't.
And he's in
remember
season 2, I think.
Yes, so haven't seen him.
I think yes. Yeah.
But I liked him. What did you think of him here?
I thought he was great. He's such a good actor. In fact, the three guys that we've talked about, I was impressed with all of them. In fact, all of the performances throughout I thought were really strong. And that's not where the film falls down. Like I think where it has troubles is actually just in the stuff we've talked about already, the scripting and what the writer was trying to achieve. But there was a moment in that scene you were just talking about where we've got Fred up on the stage thumping the lectern, and then on the ground you've got Bill sort of standing guard as the Black Panthers did at those sorts of speeches. And Jesse Plemons, who's the FBI agent who's kind of like his handler, is like in disguise in the crowd staring at him and chanting, Chairman Fred, Chairman Fred. It was just the most creepy, messed up setup. And like there were moments like that in this that just worked so beautifully. And I kind of wished on some level that the whole thing was more of a success because of those moments that were so beautiful.
It was moments like that and a couple of others that we may get to where I thought if you stitch those moments together as a short film, it would have been so powerful. And to have the essence of the film without all the details. But Jesse Plemons is interesting because his character is almost one of the more complex ones of the whole film, because he clearly was a man torn. I thought, like, torn between the idiot Martin Sheen Hoover, and just all the white supremacist infrastructure that was in place. Yeah, and he knew he had a job to do, but he seemed torn between them two. Yeah, and I was a bit disappointed, that he ended up being, I don't know, a bit of an unlikable character.
Yeah, big time.
But not completely.
It's almost like he ended up choosing his career over his beliefs. Although, that being said, he had a really strong belief from the start that the Black Panthers and the KKK were basically the same thing. So he was a little black and white in terms of like, these are extremists and extremists are the enemy. Yeah. Which was interesting. It was interesting to have a person that believes that and kind of like them for other reasons at the same time, and also understand why he feels justified in fighting the war. But by the end of it, you kind of lose all that because he ends up just doing whatever Hoover wants him to do. Yeah. Which was the shame, wasn't it?
It was disappointing. I know that's obviously must have been what happened, but it would be nice for more complexity. And also, like the white characters, I find this happens sometimes when when there's clear good guys and bad guys. They were so disgusting. Yeah. Like the Martin Sheen as Hoover just looked like there was nothing redeeming. Which that may well be, but for a story. Yeah. And for complexities in story, that doesn't work well.
I found Martin Sheen playing Hoover, and his eyes in particular, to be so disconcerting.
Distracting.
It's really, the makeup around the eyes, I think, was a big part of it. We seemed to have the lower part of his face was his, and then everything around here was just bizarrely made up. I mean, one thing I think it worked well in that respect is that you could see the actor in Martin Sheen shining through. Like he was playing the character well, but it was distracting. The sort of treatment on his face was
waste of money though. Getting Martin Sheen,
potentially,
only to put a whole lot of crap on his face, and I didn't think he had much of a role.
No, not really. Aside from just sort of being over the top gross, that was the point, right?
Yeah. I reckon you could get a lot of people who wouldn't have to put on the prosthetic to.
But that's a favorite thing to do in biopics now, is to sort of dress, famous actors up as overweight, full on, white dudes from the past. Like, how many Winston Churchill makeovers have we had in recent years? Yeah. Anyway, interesting one.
Anything that stood out from a filmic perspective, like the sound or the look or any of those things?
I think the film was made well. You know what I mean? Like there was nothing that I would say is particularly going to stand out, other than I think it was made well. I think the moments that stood out to me were actually just like almost they could have been short films in themselves. Like you said, just tight little scenes that were just beautifully done as a self-contained moment. There was the one we talked about with Plemons in the crowd.
Yep.
There was another great one where you realise that Fred Hampton's love interest has come to the realisation that she's pregnant, and that Fred is more interested in the revolution than in being a dad, and that she's going to have to live with that and sort of reconcile these two things. That was some of those, like her performances there were beautiful and nuanced, and just some of that human drama there was like, I just thought was great.
Yeah,
like I would have loved more of that sort of stuff, you know.
I thought she was better than him.
Yeah, I actually agree.
I thought he was nothing against the actor, but a bit trapped in the idea of his character, whereas she had some subtlety, and you could feel there was things going on beneath the surface. She
had more freedom to explore the role, I think, as well. Yeah. The same with the guy LaKeith, who plays Bill. I mean, he probably had a lot more freedom because there wouldn't have been, you know, loads of interviews and tapes of him, for instance. But
he used his freedom well. Like I felt
definitely.
He carried it to me. Like I could have watched him all day because he was likable, but he's doing pretty awful things.
What a great face!
Great face.
It was a great face, and as we get towards the end of the film, and he's starting to have to do some pretty awful deeds to just keep his freedom, because he's, as they would do with these with people, the FBI had him trapped. Like it was either go to prison for a very long time or do these things. And he'd gotten so far in that you can understand that it'd just lead to one act after the other that's just slightly worse.
Yeah.
And you could see the wear and tear on him. Like as a performance, it was amazing to watch. No, did a great job.
I thought some of the rest of the cast sort of almost blurred into each other a bit. There were a lot of them. Yeah. And I don't
could have been from any film with the Black Panthers in them, basically.
Yeah,
like
just a whole
Black
sort
Panther look.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And just a whole lot of them, and we didn't get really deep into anyone.
Yeah, that's true.
Which would have been nice, I think, because there were a lot of good signs in some of those characters, like the leader of that rival group. What were they called? The Crown or something?
Yeah, the Crowns. Yeah,
Crowns. I should know this stuff. I'm not good on my history, but
neither am I. Yeah.
But he had presence.
He did.
I wanted more from him. Like,
he was good, wasn't he?
He really just the look of the man, but just he only had a little bit to work with, but I think he just nailed it. And I would have liked to dig into there a bit more. Yep,
absolutely. I saw there were some little cameos. I just saw Coming to America the other day.
Oh, wow.
Coming to America.
Yeah.
And the guy who plays the young prince is in this film as well for a moment. It's such a small role. But, there were a lot of actors in there that I've seen from other films. Wouldn't know their names, but, quite a big cast. So
me too.
Yeah.
What I liked, and I think this was playing out early and lost a bit at the end. I liked the insight into the politics within the Black Panther ecosystem.
Yes.
That I didn't know much about. Like I would hear about the Black Panthers, but not really get into the rivalry with other groups and how they come together. And then that weird alignment with those Confederate flag guys.
Yeah, I know. The Young Lords or something they were.
Yeah, I still don't understand the history behind that.
No. What's interesting there is that Fred Hampton had this understanding that poor white people in America also have it pretty shit. You know what I mean? And so he'd sort of built a bridge between them, which I thought was pretty great.
Yeah, so did I.
For that time, I didn't actually know that there'd been any bridge building like that in the past at all.
And I really, just from a historical perspective, I was taken back by that scene when they joined forces. I didn't know how it was going to play out.
No, I was
And
expecting some sort of ambush to come along, or
Yeah.
but it actually was.
I loved that they got together.
Yeah.
I thought that was just wonderful. And if that's history, why don't we know that sort of stuff? And why aren't they trying to replay that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing I will say for this film that makes me think of is that it's probably the most nuanced portrayal of the Black Panthers that I've seen today. Not that I've seen a lot of films, but I've seen a fair number where there are Black Panthers in those films. And they're usually portrayed in such a sort of two-dimensional way.
Absolutely.
Like it's more about the look and the sort of aggressive front than anything else. This really showed you behind the scenes, the politics going within the group, what they were trying to achieve, those sorts of moments where they're actually kind of building bridges with other groups that are different to them.
Yeah.
I thought that in itself is worth mentioning.
Anything else? I'm struck by two scenes, especially like that full-on one towards the end, where all the major violence happens, and everyone's shot dead in Fred's. Where are they? Are they in headquarters, or? I
think they're in it looked like they were in a headquarters or a building where a bunch of them are sleeping.
I was kind of, I wouldn't say relaxed through the film, but I was in the zone. I was used to the rhythm. And that really confronted me.
Yeah, it was full on. Yeah, it was full on because the cops come in looking like a bunch of mafia. Like
and they're not just cops. They're like those same redneck looking dudes, along with cops.
Yeah. They don't look like, it doesn't look like a standard police raid. Like they all come in looking like the mob, basically. That was definitely confronting. No other major scenes for me. I did like the music at times. There were a couple really great moments where the score kicked in and it had a great vibe to it. And beyond that, I think it was all just handled kind of well, but there was nothing to stand out.
It felt a bit Netflix for me, and I don't mean Netflix in a bad way, because Netflix is wonderful.
No, I agree though. I know what you mean.
Maybe Netflix isn't the right, like telemovie.
Yeah, it didn't have that cinematic quality to it. Actually, a lot of biopics can feel that way, unless it's something ridiculous like Bohemian Rhapsody or something. A lot of them do feel a little bit telemovie, don't they?
And that's probably one of the reasons why I don't like true stories generally, because I prefer the style elements of film. And when you get something like this, there isn't much of that.
No.
Like, yes, there's good performances. Yes, there's a pretty cool story underneath it all, but not playing with form and all that sort of thing, which I find fun.
Should we get into remind me ofs?
Yes, we should. Me first.
If you've got one off the top of your head.
The opening scene, which was one of the good ones, I thought, when we're introduced to Bill. And we see him as an undercover. I don't think he was even. Was he undercover?
He was pretending to be
undercover. And he goes into a bar.
Like Dick Tracy.
Dick Tracy. He goes into a bar and he, basically tells everyone, empty your pockets, and then they realise that he's not a cop. And he's just trying to steal someone's car. That scene reminded me of The French Connection. When Gene Hackman enters a bar and does the same sort of stick-up job. And that had all these kind of awful racial elements to it that really made you feel uncomfortable, especially all these years later. So it felt like a reworking of that, with a bit of just flipping the narrative of it a bit. So I don't know, I enjoyed that. I thought it was a good intro to the character.
Yeah, absolutely. So I couldn't shake Get Out straight away because of the two actors. There's nothing else really that has anything to do with Get Out, but just the fact that we had these two guys as like two of the main characters, I thought was a really interesting choice, because Get Out is such a, it's almost become like a seminal film in terms of like, it's a film with two, well, at least one kind of main black character. It's all about racial horror almost, and it also just broke box office records in terms of like what you could do with a horror film, and got an Oscar nomination, right? And maybe a win. I'm trying to remember now, but like it's such a big film, and then to take the two of the big actors from that film and plonk them into this one was an unusual choice, I thought, and was a little distracting for me. But after being distracted for about 10 minutes, I kind of got on with it.
You know what though? We're in a new era of film, and especially black themed films and films by black directors and black
that's true.
crews, and I think and actors. So it's almost as if the same actors are coming to prominence and getting reused as they should always have been.
Yeah, that's right.
We're now just saying, they were just in that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we're at a moment in history where it's just starting to blossom.
Yeah, it's a great
So we
point.
are going to see some of the same actors reappear because they're the ones that have made their name in something else that's big.
You're just making me think like how many other films I've seen with the same two actors popping up in it over the years and probably not thought much of it. But at the moment, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I'm sure there have been some.
I'll go and say Black Klansman.
Yes.
And I feel a bit self-conscious even mentioning Black Klansman because I reckon I've mentioned that a couple of times.
Yeah.
And it seems that whenever we are doing these films with sort of the black themes, that you end up referencing the same films.
Yeah.
There's an explosion of them.
Yeah, there are.
Which is good. But Black Klansman in particular
it
involves Denzel's son infiltrating the Klan.
Yeah.
I find that thematically...
Over the phone, sort of.
Over the phone, yeah.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about the infiltration part of it. I mean, I was thinking Spike Lee already as well. We've got The Five Bloods, which is the sort of Vietnam era situation, which filters into this film.
Sort of era-wise.
Yeah, Spike Lee's whole approach of incorporating footage from the period into his films, which you get a little bit of just a flavour of that in this, but not a lot.
But Spike Lee does it better, I might say.
Absolutely,
because
totally.
Spike Lee has... It infiltrates, like history infiltrates, but he's still playing with all the cinematic devices.
I totally agree. It's almost like he uses those as flavor, as part of his tool bag of like things that he can bring to the cinematic experience, as opposed to leaning on it and going, well, I'm going to tell a truthful account of history now. Beat by beat. That's right. Yeah.
Nothing wrong with either version, so this was fine too. But I'd lean to the Spike Lee stuff.
Totally agree. Yeah. I also thought of films like, in the same vein, Selma, 12 Years a Slave. I was thinking about these films where we're seeing a moment in history where you're getting a strong push against the establishment, and I think any of these films lean on those other films in some way. This one, I think, isn't going to be remembered as like one of the big ones, I don't think. But we've already kind of covered that.
But I think the purpose of this historically is just to get the story out there.
Yeah, I agree.
I think I need that education.
Yeah,
and I think the world does, to just get more insight into what's happened in history.
And maybe that's part of it. It's the accumulation of all these stories that kind of set the record straight. Recently, you and I both saw Trial of Chicago 7.
Yes.
Which we haven't talked about yet.
We may or may not do an episode of it.
We may not.
I think let's talk about it now.
Well, I was reminded of that as well, and for one reason. Well, we've got all the sort of revolution talk, which is strong through both films, but we also have in that trial the founder of the Black Panthers, who the portrayal of that character was so different to anything we saw in this, and the guys behind him who just seemed like the two-dimensional cutout Black Panthers that we've talked about as well.
They seemed like it, but he didn't.
He didn't know.
He was.
That's right.
That was one of the absolute killer performances I've seen for a while. In
that's
Trial of
correct.
Chicago 7. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Because he was the 8th person. He wasn't meant to. As far as he was concerned, he wasn't meant to be there. and he was just being kind of roped in so they could put him behind bars.
Yeah, like whether or not we do an episode of that on that film, I recommend everyone watches it, and if for nothing else, then to see not only that performance, but to see the history of it.
Yeah,
that just floored me that all of that could take place.
Yep, absolutely.
So they bound and gagged him in the courtroom.
Yeah, it was incredible. I know. Yeah,
I didn't know this.
I had no knowledge of it as well.
How do I not know that? It's
yeah.
And what else don't I know?
No, that's right. And that I mean, that's a whole other thing. That's such a big. That film has so much going on in it. But yeah, that was a real moment in it, wasn't it?
Well, that film actually reminded me, just as this Judas and Black Messiah reminds me of Mrs. America.
I haven't seen that.
Which stars several people, but Kate Blanchett, Rose Byrne, and that's all about the women's movement. You know, in the whatever it was, the 60s. I get confused with time. Actually, it spans quite a period, and has the lefties, fighting for women's rights, and the Kate Blanchett playing, I've forgotten her name, basically women for the lack of human rights.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Lack of women's rights, and just the fictionalization of real history, just played a little similar. Probably remind me more of the trial of Chicago 7.
Well, I think we've talked about a lot of references. Do you have any others?
Look, any film about infiltrators.
Yeah.
And there'd be a host of undercover cop type films.
Tons.
The interview where Seth Rogen.
The interview.
Seth Rogen infiltrates
South Korea. North Korea. Yeah, that's hilarious.
And any of those types of films.
Yeah, there's loads actually. Now that you mention it, this is just such a straight take on it, such a biopic take on it. I think that kind of, in some regards, puts it more into you just start thinking of other biopics in a way.
Yeah, you do.
Rather than the other films, in all of the canon that are probably more aligned with it.
Which is a bit dull because it had moments of more than that.
Did.
And it could have taken off.
Yeah.
And it wasn't bad, but it never took off.
I agree. I had high hopes for it, and at moments I thought, "Oh my god, here we go." And you're right. You'd get a great scene, and then it would just sort of plateau out again.
Yes.
Until the next great scene.
Yeah.
It was enough to string you along, but it didn't really ever feel like a complete experience.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Well, I think this, though, has been a complete experience, Baron.
I know. I think so.
And why not stop there?
Yep, let's stop it there. See you next week, Doc.
See you, Baron.